That's not going in the cabin. Flight attendant Cheryl Voss snatched the prescription bag from 15-year-old Darius Monroe's hands and dropped it into the trash bin behind the galley curtain. The plastic seal crinkled as it hit the bottom. Gone. Just like that. United Express Flight 2219 sat at Gate C-11 in Chicago O'Hare. Boarding was almost complete. Outside, ground crew loaded the last bags. Inside, Darius stood in the aisle gripping his seat back, his breathing already thickening at the edges. Please. His voice came out smaller than he meant it to. That's my EpiPen. I have a severe peanut allergy. I need it. Cheryl folded her arms across her wings. Every kid who wants to sneak something past security has a story. She glanced at the passengers already seated, performing confidence for an audience. I've been doing this for 9 years. I know what a real medical device looks like. That thing looked homemade. It wasn't homemade. It was a $400 auto-injector prescribed by Dr. Yolanda Fitch at Children's Memorial Hospital. The pharmacy label was still on the box when Cheryl threw it away. She hadn't bothered to read it. Have you ever watched someone discard another person's life like a piece of litter and smile while doing it? 3 rows back, a woman named Grace Okoye had her phone pointed directly at Cheryl Voss. Grace was a pediatric nurse who recognized an EpiPen from 20 feet away. She didn't say anything yet. She was recording. She would keep recording. Darius reached for his medical alert card inside his jacket pocket. It was laminated, issued by his school, and listed his allergy, his doctor, and the emergency protocol in bold red letters. He extended it toward Cheryl. She didn't take it, didn't look at it. Sit down, she said, or exit the aircraft. The other passengers shifted. Some looked away. A man in a business suit in row 4 very carefully became interested in his laptop screen. A young woman across the aisle glanced at Darius, then at Cheryl, then pulled out her phone. Darius Monroe did not look like what Cheryl Voss expected to see in seat 7B. He was tall for 15, with a fade haircut and a hoodie from a school she didn't recognize. He was traveling alone. He didn't have someone older beside him to advocate. He had no one on that plane who knew his name. What he did have, tucked inside his backpack in the overhead bin, was a regional science fair trophy, a letter from the governor's STEM initiative, and a phone with 17 missed calls from the same contact. Dad. Darius hadn't answered. He was too focused on the fact that he couldn't breathe properly on a plane where, in 20 minutes, the flight attendant might begin the snack service. And he had no EpiPen. 2 hours earlier, Darius Monroe had woken up at 4:30 a.m. in his grandmother's apartment on the south side of Chicago. She'd made him eggs, pressed his hoodie, and walked him to the door. Study hard, baby. Show them what you're made of. He was flying to Washington, D.C. to present his project at the National Youth Science Symposium. He'd won his regional slot over 340 other students. His father, Marcus Monroe, had packed his son's carry-on the night before with the focus of a man who understood the stakes of sending a black teenager through airports alone. Every document was in a clear plastic sleeve. His medical alert card, his EpiPen, 2 of them in a labeled pharmacy bag, his school ID, his symposium registration confirmation. Marcus had gone over it 3 times. Because Marcus Monroe knew how the world worked. He learned it at 19, at 24, at 31. He'd learn it every time he walked into a room, carrying credentials that certain people refused to see. He was a commercial airline pilot. 17 years. Captain stripes on a United Airlines uniform that hung in his closet at home while he worked a desk shift this week as part of a mandatory rotation through ground operations management. His airport badge gave him access to every terminal in O'Hare. He was 12 minutes away when his son stopped answering calls. Back on the aircraft, Cheryl Voss had found something new to be concerned about. Grace Okoye was still recording. "Ma'am," Cheryl said, stepping toward row 10. "Recording crew is not permitted during boarding." Grace lowered her phone slightly, but did not turn it off. "I'm documenting a medical safety concern. That's not your decision to make." "Actually," Grace said, "I'm a pediatric nurse." And the medication you just disposed of is a prescribed epinephrine auto-injector for a patient with anaphylaxis risk. If this aircraft serves peanuts and that boy goes into shock, you've created a life-threatening situation. Grace kept her voice steady, clinical, precise. The phone kept rolling. And I want that clearly on the record. Cheryl's jaw tightened. This is a crew matter. The lead flight attendant, a supervisor named David Park, appeared from the forward galley. His expression was careful, the look of a man who had stepped into something he didn't yet understand. What's the issue? She threw away my medicine. Darius said it again, louder now. His voice shook, not from fear, but from the effort of staying calm when his lungs were already sending early warning signals. His chest felt like someone had wrapped it in a wet towel. David looked at Darius, then at Cheryl. Did you discard a passenger's medication? It wasn't properly labeled, Cheryl said. I followed protocol. David frowned. The pharmacy bag wasn't labeled? It looked suspicious. Behind her, Grace Okoye had been joined by 2 other passengers with phones out. The live stream had started. Hashtag United Express was still small, 200 viewers, 400 climbing. Darius's phone vibrated in his hand. Dad. Again. This time he answered. Marcus Monroe was standing at a ground operations terminal in Concourse C when his son's voice came through small and tight. Dad, they threw away my EpiPen. I'm on the plane and they won't give it back, and I think they're going to start boarding snacks, and I don't feel right. 3 seconds of silence. What flight number? Marcus's voice went to a register his son had never heard before. Not panic. The opposite of panic. The voice of a man shifting into a mode he'd trained for his entire career. Gate C11. I'm coming. Marcus Monroe ended the call, picked up his ground operations radio, and was already moving. He badged through 2 restricted doors in 90 seconds. His radio crackled as he keyed the channel for gate management. This is Captain Marcus Monroe, employee ID 7-7-4-1-4. I have a minor passenger in medical distress on United Express 2219 at C11. I'm requesting immediate gate, hold, and medical standby. Do not push that aircraft. The gate agent's voice came back. Captain, the flight is completing boarding. Do not push that aircraft. His voice left no room for discussion. I am en route to the gate. Hold the flight. On the plane, Cheryl Voss did not yet know any of this. She was standing in the aisle informing David Park that she had followed every procedure correctly and that the passenger was being dramatic. The word landed in the recycled air like something rotten. Dramatic. Darius Monroe sat in seat 7B, trying not to let the tightness in his chest become something worse, clutching his medical alert card that nobody had read. Grace Okoye had 1,200 live viewers. Her voice, calm and clear, was narrating exactly what she was witnessing. A 15-year-old boy is sitting on this plane without his prescribed EpiPen because a flight attendant decided it looked fake. He is showing early symptoms of respiratory distress. No one is helping him. I am asking anyone watching to share this right now. The share count climbed. 800, 2,000, 6,400. The aircraft door was still open. Barely. Then boots hit the jet bridge at full stride. Captain Marcus Monroe came through that aircraft door the way certain people enter rooms. Not loudly, not aggressively, but in a way that immediately reorganized the physics of the space. 6 feet, United Airlines captain's uniform. 17 years of authority radiating through every movement. He was still buttoning his jacket. His eyes found Darius in 2 seconds. He crossed the cabin in 4 more. You okay? He put a hand on his son's shoulder, felt the slight wheeze under his breath, and his expression hardened. My inhaler's in the trash, Darius said. She said it was fake. Marcus Monroe turned, found Cheryl Voss standing 3 feet away. His voice was level. Where's my son's medication? Cheryl looked at his uniform. The stripes. The badge. Something shifted behind her eyes, the first crack of uncertainty. Sir, I was following safety protocols. The item appeared to be an EpiPen, Marcus said, prescribed to my son, with a pharmacy label, which you discarded without reading it. The cabin had gone completely silent. Not the polite silence of people pretending not to listen. The absolute silence of 70 passengers who understood they were watching something historic. David Park stepped forward. "Sir, if you'll give us a moment to." Marcus held up one hand. He wasn't done with Cheryl. "My son has a documented severe peanut allergy. His medication was clearly labeled, properly sealed, and presented with a medical alert card you refused to read. He is a minor traveling alone. He is currently in the early stages of a reaction because he cannot access the medication you threw in a trash bin." He looked at her the way he'd looked at instrument panels and storms, steady, accounting for every variable. "Do you understand what you've done?" Cheryl opened her mouth, closed it. Grace Okoye's live stream now had 14,000 viewers. Marcus turned to David. "I need that EpiPen retrieved from wherever it was disposed of. Now, I need medical standby at this gate, and I need this flight grounded until my son has been assessed." David was already moving toward the galley, already reaching for his radio. "Sir," Cheryl tried again, her voice smaller now. "I didn't know who he was. I was only—" Marcus turned back to her slowly. "That's the problem." His voice was quiet. "You shouldn't have to know who he is. He's a child who needed medicine. That should have been enough." The trash bin from the galley was brought forward. The pharmacy bag was intact. The EpiPen was retrieved, checked, and placed in Darius's hands in front of the entire cabin. Darius used it. He sat back. The tightness in his chest began to unknot. 70 passengers watched in silence. Then, from row 10, someone started clapping. Grace Okoye. Slow at first. Then row 9. Then row 14. By the time the sound reached full cabin volume, Marcus Monroe wasn't looking at the passengers. He was looking at his son. The flight was delayed 41 minutes while paramedics assessed Darius on the jet bridge. His oxygen levels came back normal. His throat was clear. The EpiPen had been a precaution, not an emergency, but only because his father had gotten there in time. The paramedic, a woman named Torres, pulled Marcus aside. "Another 10 minutes on that plane with a snack service and no auto-injector," she said quietly. This could have been a very different conversation. Marcus nodded once. He already knew. United Express's regional supervisor, a man named Gerald Osei, arrived at the gate looking like he'd been woken from a peaceful dream and dropped into a nightmare. "Captain Monroe," he said, extending his hand, "I've been briefed. I want you to know the airline takes this extremely." Marcus accepted the handshake, but didn't let the sentence finish. "What happens to the flight attendant?" Gerald's expression shifted carefully. "There's a process, an investigation. We take these allegations seriously." She discarded a child's life-saving medication based on how he looked. Marcus said it the same way he'd stated his employee ID. Clean, factual, without performance. There's footage from at least 3 passengers' phones and a live stream that currently has 40,000 viewers. I want her relieved of duty before this aircraft pushes back. Gerald looked at his shoes for 2 seconds, then at Marcus. Then he reached for his own radio. Inside the aircraft, Cheryl Voss was told to gather her personal items. Her wings and lanyard were surrendered to the gate agent. She walked off the aircraft through a jet bridge that felt very long and came out into a terminal where, on the departure screen, someone had pulled up a phone showing her face, frozen mid-argument, and the caption was already spreading. "Flight attendant throws away black teens, EpiPen, father grounds entire flight." The numbers under the video had 6 digits and were climbing. Flight 2219 finally departed for Washington, D.C. at 11:47 a.m., 43 minutes late. Darius Monroe sat in seat 2A, first class. His father had arranged it before boarding resumed. The upgraded seat had nothing to do with privilege and everything to do with proximity to the crew who would now check on him every 20 minutes. A flight attendant named Kwame, who had replaced Cheryl's position, stopped by before takeoff. He didn't make a speech. He just set a ginger ale on Darius's tray table and said, "You good?" Darius looked up. "Yeah, I'm good." "That's enough for right now," Kwame said. "The rest will sort itself out." Marcus sat one row behind his son, working his phone. United's corporate communications team had already reached out. So had a reporter from the Chicago Tribune. So had 3 other airline industry contacts who'd seen Grace Okoye's live stream, which had now crossed 200,000 views with hashtag #LetDariusBreathe trending in 14 states. Marcus replied to none of them yet. He watched his son stare out the window as Chicago shrank beneath them, city blocks shrinking to grid lines, roads becoming threads. He watched his son's breathing, steady, clean even. He'd almost not made it in time. 12 minutes away. 9 years old when Marcus had first explained to Darius how the world sometimes saw them before heard them. 12 minutes. "Dad," Darius said without turning from the window. "Yeah, thank you." Marcus looked at the back of his son's head, at the fade haircut and the school hoodie, at the 15-year-old boy who had stayed calm, stayed polite, kept extending a medical alert card to someone who refused to see it. "You did everything right," Marcus said. "Don't ever forget that." The fallout was swift and specific. By the time Flight 2219 landed in D.C., United Airlines had issued a formal statement confirming that a flight attendant had been removed from duty and that an immediate review of medical accommodation protocols was underway. The statement was 3 paragraphs. The video Grace Okoye had shot was 6 minutes and 40 seconds long and had been viewed 800,000 times. Cheryl Voss resigned the following morning before United's investigation team could complete its first formal interview. Her union representative issued a statement about context and procedures. It was not well received. The video made context very clear. Gerald Osei released a second statement, this one longer and more specific. United was immediately implementing mandatory medical device recognition training for all cabin crew. A new digital system would allow passengers to flag medical needs during check-in, visible to crew before boarding began. An independent review panel, including medical professionals and disability rights advocates, would audit existing medical accommodation policies within 60 days. Dr. Anita Sharma, head of emergency medicine at Northwestern Memorial, appeared on CNN that evening. She kept her remarks simple. An epinephrine autoinjector is not optional for someone with anaphylaxis risk. Confiscating one is not a safety measure. It is the opposite of a safety measure. She held up a standard EpiPen for the camera. This looks like exactly what it is. Grace Okoye, still in her scrubs, appeared on 3 news programs in 24 hours. She said the same thing each time. "I filmed it because I knew what I was looking at and I knew no one was stopping it. I want every nurse, every paramedic, every doctor on every plane to know your professional judgment matters. Use it." The National Allergy Foundation issued a statement. So did the American Academy of Pediatrics. So did 17 members of Congress, including 2 who sat on the aviation subcommittee. The hashtag peaked at 4.2 million posts. Darius Monroe presented his project at the National Youth Science Symposium on a Thursday afternoon. His topic was atmospheric particulate filtration systems for enclosed environments, airplane cabins specifically. He had chosen it 8 months earlier because his allergy had always made him think carefully about the air he breathed. The symposium judges gave him the top award in his division. The plaque was still warm from the engraver when he called his father. "I won," he said. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I know," he said. "I've always known." Before Darius left the stage, the symposium director asked him if he wanted to say anything to the audience. 300 young scientists from across the country. Darius looked out at them, every background, every corner of America, and thought about what to say. "I almost didn't make it here," he finally said. "Not because I didn't earn it, because someone decided I didn't look like I belonged." He paused. "But I had a father who got there in time. Not everybody does. So if you see someone who's been written off before they've had a chance to prove what they are, say something. Do something. Don't look away." The room was quiet for a moment. Then it wasn't. 3 months later, Marcus Monroe testified before the Senate Commerce Committee's Aviation Subcommittee. He wore his United Airlines uniform. His captain's stripes caught the committee room lights. He brought one item to the table with him: a laminated medical alert card. His son's. This card, he said, sliding it toward the microphone, contains my son's name, his allergy, his doctor's contact, and an emergency protocol. It was extended to a flight attendant 7 times. She never read it. He looked down the row of senators. We ask black children to be patient, to be polite, to follow procedure, to present documentation. Darius did all of those things. He did everything right, and it almost cost him his life. He straightened slightly in his chair. The systems we build to protect passengers only protect passengers if the people operating them choose to see them as passengers first, not as threats, not as problems, as people with the same right to land safely as everyone else on that plane. Senator Andrea Ewan leaned toward her microphone. Captain Monroe, what would you recommend as the single most important change the airline industry could make right now? Marcus didn't hesitate. Stop designing systems that require passengers to prove they deserve safety. Safety is not something you earn on a plane. It is something you're owed the moment you buy a ticket. The Secure Skies Medical Access Act passed committee 6 weeks later. It required standardized medical device verification training for all commercial airline crew nationwide. A passenger medical pre-registration system accessible to all carriers, and a federal reporting requirement for any incident involving the denial of prescribed medical equipment. It was known informally in the aviation industry and beyond as Darius's Law. Darius Monroe turned 16 on a Saturday in April. His grandmother made him a cake. His father took the day off, which required paperwork and 3 schedule adjustments, and was absolutely worth it. After dinner, sitting on his grandmother's porch watching the south side settle into evening, Darius pulled out his EpiPen, a new one, labeled sealed, and held it in his hands for a moment. He thought about seat 7B, about Cheryl Voss's face when she looked at him and decided what she saw, about the cabin going silent around him, about the tightness in his chest, and the phone buzzing in his lap, and the sound of boots on a jet bridge. He thought about every kid sitting on a plane right now, alone, holding out a medical alert card, hoping someone reads it. Put that back in your bag, his grandmother said from the doorway. You're not going to need it tonight. He looked up. I just want to know it's there. She sat down beside him and put an arm around his shoulders. It's there, baby. And so are we. The city hummed around them. Somewhere above it all, a plane was lifting off, climbing through the amber-edged dark, carrying passengers who would land safely because a 15-year-old boy had held out a card until someone finally read it. Darius put the EpiPen back in his jacket pocket and leaned into his grandmother's shoulder. Systems change when people refuse to disappear. He knew that now. He would carry it with him everywhere, even at 30,000 feet. Did Darius's story move you? Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who refused to stay silent and changed everything because of it. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.